Hi, I'm Darren Gough and welcome to my new cricket show. For those of you who don't know me, I used to play a little bit of cricket for Yorkshire, Essex and England. I was a talkSPORT presenter, MD of cricket at Yorkshire, but most people probably know me for being that dancer on Strictly Come Dancing. I played in 4 Ashes series, 2 at home and 2 away, and I never was on the winning side in an Ashes series. I never had that pleasure of lifting that little urn. So what we're going to do 10 shows on how to win an Ashes series. Whether it be captaincy, whether it be handling pressure, whether it's dealing with that outside noise from the media, Australian media, English media, or the fans' expectancy home and away. So, what do England need to do to lift that little urn in January at the SCG? This is how to win the Ashes. In today's show, we are going to be talking about captaincy. Let's start off by listening to Freddie Flintoff and Army talking about what they wanted most from a captain.
Michael took over, and for me, that was a relief.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it, you know.
Did NASA stifle us, or did he mould and educate us what we possibly needed as?
I'm not sure it's what we needed.
You know,
No.
I thought it's what I needed.
Yeah.
Me and you had many disagreements in our room watching the television.
You're always right, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm always right. Yeah, and you always have the last word, didn't you?
Yeah.
But I always felt as though I needed NASA to shout at me to help me go where you.
I just needed to breathe a little bit, to be honest with you. I think I look back.
Is that what Michael did to us?
I think so. I think with NASA, and I get all right with NASA now.
Yeah.
You know, I won't want to see him every day, but I get all right with him. And the one thing was, I think someone else said this. You look at 2 captains. You look at Steve Waugh. He was hard on the opposition, and you had NASA, who was hard on his own players.
Yeah.
And I don't think it came from a bad place.
No.
I don't think it did. I think it came... NASA's a passionate man. He's single-minded. I think I write about this in the book. And that's how he operated. But for me, I think at times I needed an hurry-up, or I needed a bollocking, or I needed someone to have an hard word. But I needed a bit more room to move a little bit, to be honest with you. And I think Michael did that for us. You know, he wanted people to express the character. He wanted to play in a different way. Mm. And with Michael, I think he let me be me to a point, and then if I started just going the wrong side of it, he'd pull me back in, and that allowed me. But it also as well, it came in a time when I was a little bit older as well.
Yeah,
I played a little bit more, and if you look at the culture that he created, it's similar to what England are doing now, but we didn't see it through, where I think these lads are.
And here's Freddie talking about the mistake he made taking the captaincy before the 2006-7 Ashes series.
The captaincy in Australia, I openly admit that I let you down. You're my best mate, and I just didn't perform. I couldn't perform. I just didn't know. You know, these things happen. But if I was looking back at sort of regrets in my time, which I don't look too many, the one big one was the fact that when my best mate needed me, I wasn't there for him.
No,
and it was a tough time for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a regret about that. By no stretch of the imagination. You know, going to the captaincy in a minute, but like first on that. So that Australia trip, it was cursed, wasn't it?
Well, of course it was.
You know what I mean? You know, looking back, I should never have captained it. And I'd be really honest with you, I'm not sure I wanted to anyway. It was, everyone's talking about who's going to captain the Ashes. I'd done a bit in India, and I loved it in India. Yeah. I had this young team, and I was playing well, and I thought, if someone needs doing, I can do it. I had Jude on fire. You know, Cookie's come into the side, Jimmy had doing well. Monty was
starting.
It was lovely. I really enjoyed it. We drew in Mumbai for the first time. We drew a series in India. Sri Lanka was a bit of a challenge. Pitches we played on, we might as well have been in Colombo.
Yeah. And
then we went to Australia, and I remember I was racing to get fit from another surgery, and everyone's asking about the captaincy. Is it me? Is it Strauss? And I'm getting phone calls every day, and everyone's asking. And honestly, I don't know if I took it for myself. I think I was expected to and took it. And I'm not sure it ever really sat that comfortable with me. You know, I got announced as captain with the rest of the squad, so I didn't pick a squad.
Yeah.
I'd shaved my head and I looked terrible, and I'd gone too short, so like, you know, just come out with some like bone head. And
Duncan wasn't the same Duncan that he started the England.
well, you look at that relationship as well.
It wasn't the greatest.
You know, you got on better with him than I did.
Yeah,
but it wasn't.
just,
It wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't. I had the best years of my career under him, but it was a strange relationship. You know, if I did well, we talked. If I didn't, it was my fault. And I think sometimes, like, even though I just needed someone to understand me a bit, or put their arm around me and say it'd be all right, I didn't feel I had that with Duncan. And it's not a criticism. I mean, you know, as England coach, he did well, didn't he? And you can line up a load of lads who had a very different experience. But going into that series, you know, I wasn't quite fit. I'd taken the captaincy on. My best batter had gone home, Trez. He should have been captain really, but he was having his own struggles. And then there was you. And then I look back at that, and that first ball, and we have a joke about it. I have one regret, actually. I should have bowled it, because I knew that you weren't right walking out there. But looking back at it, was you're the only player I really managed to keep picking. The only one I dug my heels in on, for a couple of reasons. Actually, I still felt even you at that point was better than the other options.
Yeah, we didn't have many options.
I also know, irrespective of how you're going to bowl, I'm going to get everything. I know you care, I know you're passionate, and I want to walk out with you every time, and we'll figure the bowling out. And also thought, actually, from a more personal point of view, after that first game, I'm not dropping you.
Yeah.
Because that'll kill you. Whether it's for the team, this for you. And I put my relationship with you above that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I was also so confident that you'd turn it around.
Yeah.
And you'd come good, just give him time.
First up, former England wicketkeeper and Ashes winner, Matt Fryer.
I think Vaughan and Strauss were much more comparable to Cook and the others. Cookie was different in the way that he was...
Was he a bit more set in his ways, Cook? Like, what I thought from Strauss, from the outside, because I didn't really play. I played with Strauss one day as again, but played under Vaughan, and I captained Vaughan as well, which is mad. But when I look at them two, I think those were two that would risk it, something to happen. They'd see something, and they'd be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
With Cookie, sometimes I got the impression that he was waiting for something to happen and then he'd react to it. Would I be right in that? I bet you played it.
It helps. That's why I'm giggling, because for a period of time I was Cookie's vice captain, and he would be stood at first slip and I'd be keeping, and I'm like, we've got to change something, mate. This isn't working. Let's make a change. Let's look at. And he'd always.
Yeah. Stay calm. Yeah.
I'm like, mate, Warner's pumping us here. We need to do something.
Yeah.
We're just sitting for another over. Okay. And I used to like, mate, we've got to do something. We've got to be proactive here. And look, that's why even a captain and vice captain, you want slightly different characters, because if everyone's saying the same thing, you go nowhere, right? So it's certainly not a criticism of Cookie, but very much my own personality. I was like, right, let's go, let's do things, let's change. That's not working, move on to that. He very much just wanted to sit in. I think Vaughanie sort of set a precedent, particularly with the Aussies, and studying the Aussies and how they bat, putting those sweepers out so Hayden only got one to
attacked them just before lunch.
All
Steve Waugh, we've heard him talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't really play enough under Vaughanie to be able to comment too much, but of the three experiences, Strauss for me was the best captain for me and for that group. And one of the reasons why is he very much allowed the egos to be egos, and he very much allowed, you look at that dressing room in the morning, you had Jimmy Anderson grumpy as
Swanee.
The Swanee's bounding in, having had too many Mars bars and winding everyone up. It's not gone 9 o'clock. You've got Kevin Peterson cruising in his Ferrari. Brody being petulant and probably said something in the press the night before that's kicked off. Yeah, there was all sorts of stuff going on. But you just had Strauss in the corner, who was just a rock. He was just solid. So while all this other stuff was going on, he was just very, very solid, very dependable. You knew what you were going to get from him day to day. He didn't change based on the wind direction or whether we had won or lost. I remember one of the most impressive interviews he gave was actually my first Ashes series ever in 2009. And we'd we'd played well, we'd played all the cricket actually, and then we went to Headingley and we just had a meh and lost in 3 days or whatever it was. And I remember Athers interviewing him on the stage at the end, and we're all sat in the dungeon, the old dungeons at Headingley, sort of thinking, oh my God, heads are going to roll, everyone's going to get dropped and everything else. Straussy just stood up and just went, you know, this is not a time for panic. This is not a time for crazy decisions. We will go back. We will look at where we went wrong. We will assess it like we do any other game, and we will come back firing next match. And literally in that 5-minute interview, the whole dressing room just went and just settled, because he almost like just stopped the panic there and then, just by those words live, you know, saying it to the press, back in the team, and everyone was like, okay, he's our guy, you know, and that group would have done anything for Andrew Strauss.
Would it be fair to say about Strauss as well but with the education he had, he's very educated, right? We know that.
Yeah.
But he had a bit of steel to him. I think he wasn't afraid to dish out a telling off. And I think that's so important as a captain as well. You don't want someone who's kind of too laid back and all positive, but they've also got to carry that little bit of fear factor as well. But if you do cross them, they're not afraid to make a decision. And I got the impression that Strauss had that steel.
Strauss wasn't your mate, he was your captain.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a parent, right? You know, your dad, and you sort of always look up to your dad and stuff like that, and you think he's your mate, and then you get something wrong and he's like on you. And Straussy had that, you know, absolutely. I remember being called in a couple of times by Strauss. And the other thing is, he would always know when was the time. So, you know, let's say we'd be celebrating. It's little things like that. So you're celebrating as a group, everyone's out, we're having a great time. He would know when it was time just to, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm just going to leave the lads to crack on here. I'm going to
set an example.
And set an example. Not just set an example, but actually not get dragged into anything. Because if he then the next day had to call someone in, you can't be sat there going, hang on a minute, mate, you were
like Fred.
You were stood next to me.
That's why Fred wasn't a very good captain, let's be honest.
Fred was leading the
He was
charge.
the last one to go to bed.
Exactly.
But yeah, and I totally get that. And I could see that from the outside as well. I mean, I respected Strauss for that. I could see that's what he brought to a team, where sensible, but he used to enjoy a good time as well, yeah. Strauss. Yeah, I mean, he might come across sometimes where he's Mr. Straight, but he did like to be around those sort of things. But he knew, his intelligence told him he knew when it was time to step away. And I think the importance of him as a captain as well is having that coach as well. Yeah. Again, we know Andy Flower. You'll be able to tell me more about Andy, but I think having Andy, who very organised, very prepared, loved the meeting. I mean, some people either love Andy Flower as a coach or think, oh no, I'm glad I don't have to go under Andy anymore, because he was meeting after meeting. He is so thorough, isn't he, and so organised. Yeah. And I like that about him, actually, Andy. I played with Andy as a player at Essex, and he used to impress me. His knowledge, and he knew everything about the opposition. He was always well prepared.
It's another reason why we were so successful. It's because there was just no stone unturned. We just laid nothing to chance. And that was led by him. And he probably, you know, he's the only person on the planet that can make Strauss look disorganised, because he was so organised and so over everything. And that, again, is how they worked really well as a team, Strauss and Flower. And I know Andy's got some bad press and at the end with the fallout and everything else, but he was an outstanding coach, and no one cared more than him.
Well, he's the best in the world. I mean, there's no even debate now for me. No. When we're talking about the best coach in the world now, it's Andy Flower, right?
Yeah, he's just a superstar coach, and again, he created a culture within that group that wasn't for everyone, but for certain players, certainly for me, it was absolutely right, because it was all about work ethic. It was all about preparation. It was earning the right to go out and perform, so that you turn up on match day, you can then just be a player and go, and because you've done all the work. You know, he brought in a huge amount of overtraining. You know, the guys were rocking in with new balls off 19 yards rather than 20, you know, always putting you under pressure, always expecting more. Now, that was a really tough environment, and you look back and you kind of go, bloody hell, we didn't breathe for a few years there. But that is how he got the most out of what was a really talented group of players. And why, when we then turned up to us, landed in Australia, it wasn't intimidating, because we knew we were fit, we knew we were hungry, we knew we were resilient, we knew we had done the hard work. And as I say, not everyone enjoyed that, but for me, I did.
Small quick one just to finish. I think it's an important question, this. Are you in a camp where you think the captain, because look, you lose the Ashes, the captain's rubbish. You win the Ashes, the captain's the best captain we've ever had. What's your view on that? Because do you think the captain makes the team, or do you think the team help make the captain?
Oh, that's a good one. I think. See, I'll always go back to culture, and your coach and captain are the leaders of that culture, and they get it well enough, and then it bleeds into the lieutenants, and then it bleeds down, and then if you get it really well, the dressing room attendant is bought in to it all, and for that week that they're looking after you, you're looking after, they're as captivated by your group. And of course the captain then leads that, which gives you a better chance of succeeding. But having said that, you need the players. I think Michael Clarke said it quite famously after that 2013 Ashes. I mean, his bowlers made him look like an absolute genius, because whenever he came up with a plan, they were able to execute that plan perfectly. And there were times where if they hadn't, it would have made Michael Clarke look really, really daft. One thing I thought you were going to actually ask me, do you think it's the coach or the captain that has the final say on teams and squads, and that sort of conundrum and question. And for me, this is where
captain,
it has to be. It has to be, and the rationale for me is that when you're walking across the line, that captain is the guy that's in the firing line. He's the guy that needs to know which bowlers he's got at his disposal and trust that plan. I think it's very difficult to be handed an 11 that you're not quite sure about, or you have a dispute.
But that only happens in cricket. In rugby, I just watched the Lions documentary with Farrell, and in football, the manager picks the team, right? But in cricket, I agree totally with you. Yeah. The captain's the one who should cross the line with the team he wants.
And coming back to now, in Australia, I don't believe McCullum will be telling Stokes, this is the team you got to have.
Definitely.
Stokes will be like, I want this guy. He'd be going, absolutely, that's the 11 you have. And that's the relationship. Strauss and Flower, Stokes and McCullum. Very, very different, obviously.
That's how you win the Ashes.
But very similar. They got a good chance.
Well, thanks to Matt. A real treat now. Here's former Australian captain Michael Clarke. Right, Clarke, you've been a captain of your country. It's a very important role, a very honoured role, something I never managed to do. I've done it in county cricket, but listen, I just want to talk about captaining at the Test level, the pressures it brings, and what makes a good captain.
Goughie, I don't think there's any rules, to be honest. Like, I think I probably captained, or my style of personality is different to, say, Mark Taylor, for example, who I grew up watching, Steve Waugh, even Ricky Ponting, who I played. And I think we're all very different people. I think that's one of the things about captaincy. Your natural personality comes out. I don't think there's anywhere to hide. And that's probably got positives and negatives. But look, I guess my focus when I was lucky enough to take over the captaincy for the Aussie team was trying to find the way to get the best out of the players we had. We're going through a pretty tough period. I think we'll rank 5 in the world. But I thought we had still some good talent. It's just we probably hadn't spent enough time together. We're probably low on confidence. And we sort of got together after that great Australian team. So it was a hard act to follow. So I just think time together, working together at training, getting to know each other, and then you build that self-confidence as a group and start to back each other probably a lot more than you did at the start. That was probably my focus in trying to turn things around. But yeah, look, there's things I look back now. What are my 10 years post-retirement? If I captain now, I think I'd be probably a little bit softer than I was. Having a daughter, I think, really softened me. I probably have a bit more empathy for stuff off the field. I think that was probably one of my weaknesses, that I was so driven for success that I probably didn't accept, you know, a lot of the stuff that happens in all of our lives. And, you know, guys were feeling flat or couldn't train as well as you'd like. I was really hard and disciplined on, once you come to training, everything else sort of gets left at the door. So I think I'd probably, you know, I'd be a little bit softer now if I captain. But all lessons, mate. I think I got some things right, some things wrong, but I really enjoyed that challenge.
To be honest, I don't think there's anything wrong with admitting that. I think most of us, I would say, we're being professional athletes and we're driven and we want to be the very, very best. Being an empath is something I've probably developed later in life as well. I think when you're playing, it is such a difficult thing to feel empathy for others because you're so driven and focused on being the best you can be.
I think the other challenge as well that you have when you're, you know, not just a captain, because I think leadership in any sporting team is so important, and one person can't control all of that. So your vice captain, your other senior players, your coaches, they all play a part. I think you go through your career and work out what works for you, but that's not necessarily what's best for everyone else. So I think, you know, that transition from being a player, spending all that time, all those years working out how you can get your best out of yourself, and then you become a leader and you go, okay, sometimes you're so focused on trying to get everybody to, you know, if you're a hard trainer or if you're extra disciplined, like how Justin Langer become the player he was compared to how Shane Warne become the player he was. Two complete different characters, two complete different mindsets. So, yeah, I think that was a learning for me as well when I took over the captaincy, that not everybody's going to be like me, thank God. So trying to manage each individual to get the best out of themselves, which in essence gets the best out of the team. Like, that was one of the things Warnie taught me. You know, we always had this thing about the baggy green being, you know, the most special thing in the world, which to me it was, you know, to receive your baggy green was super special. And I'm sure it was for Warnie, but Warnie loved his floppy hat. So Warnie's, I guess, you know, truth was, just because I don't wear the baggy green as much as everyone else doesn't mean I don't love playing for my country as much as everyone else. And it was 100% right. But there's such a perception in Australia that your baggy green is everything. So that took time as well for, you know, for people to understand and respect. But I think that's a very simple example of, you know, exactly that. We're all different characters, and you just try and get the best out of each other.
Would your character, would you say, in your captaincy style being very much a mirror of Warnie? Because was Warnie, I don't think he captained Australia, was Warnie the best captain?
I think he captained 10 one-dayers, but no test matches.
But in test match, would he have been the best captain that never was?
I will say yes, because I played under him at Hampshire. And Warnie, everyone talks about how great a bowler he was. He was the best reader of a game of cricket that I ever saw. Like he was always in front of the game, and you could tell he was like that as a bowler, but his leadership was the same. Tactically, field placements, trying to keep the game moving, make change, whether it's change a bowler, change a field placement, get in the batter's head. He was very skillful at that. So yeah, I think without doubt, Warnie would have been an unbelievable captain on the field. I think the thing we'll never know, because captaining your country is not just about the tactical side. There's so much that comes with off the field. And that we'll never know. But in regards to reading the game of cricket, he was the best I ever played under. He was the best I saw. I think I learned a lot from Warnie, there's no doubt. But again, I think there's parts of our personalities that were different. As close a friends as we were, you know, we're still individual people. But I used to use Warnie as a sounding board, because it was either, you know, I played a lot with him, but then he went straight into commentary. So even if we were on tour, especially when it comes to using spin bowling, I would go during the lunch break. I would speak to the team manager and ask, because we had all those rules about you can't use a mobile phone and things like that. But I would ring Warnie during the lunch break on the manager's phone and say, mate, is there anything you're seeing? You know, am I using Nathan Lyon the right way? What about fields? Like a 2-minute phone call. But, you know, because he read the game so well and he was there commentating, watching, it'd only take one idea, or sometimes with Warnie, it was Warnie giving you that extra bit of confidence that just made you, you know, you felt on top of the world. But yeah, I did learn a lot from him in regards to leadership.
I think when you're captaining, Clarke, and when you're in a winning side and you're winning and you're captaining, is it any different other than results, when you're captaining a side, when you're on the losing end of it?
I think we'd all like to say no. I think we'd all like to say you stay consistent, but no, there's a big difference. I think the feeling in the group straight away is significantly different. I think, you know, that feeling in the change room becomes when you're winning. It feels like everything's about the team. You know, guys will get no runs, but they're out the front clapping and cheering because if somebody else makes 100, then you still win the game. You're over the moon. The other thing as well, players are aware, the more you win, the harder it is to get dropped individually, even though cricket is a team sport, but it's 11 individuals playing that sport. When you're losing, certainly over a period of time, I think everyone goes into, I've got to make runs to stay in the team, a little bit look after yourself sort of feeling. So that's probably one of the challenges as well, Goughie, when you're captain, to try and find ways to keep making it about the team. And it's easier said than done, in reinforcing self-confidence in your teammates and letting them know that, you still back them when they're under pressure or they're not performing. I think it's a real thing when it comes to captaining a cricket team, and it's consistent. I think, the truths around a leader, it's both sides. It's picking blokes up when they need it, which happens a lot in our sport, but then also, be willing to give blokes a kick up the backside when they need that as well. So that balance is so important. But yeah, the change room changes when you're losing, there's no doubt. You probably don't drink as much as well.
I know, exactly, mate. Don't worry, we were used to losing, especially in Ashes series. But I was going to ask you that, actually. Is there more pressure when you captain in your country in an Ashes series than in any other series, or do you think that is just media hyped?
I think the Ashes is a bigger series still. Like, I think what's happening at the moment in Australia, this series has been built probably before a ball's bowled as big as I can remember. 2005 Ashes when we lost in England, I think after sort of the first test or during the first test, things just went wild. Like, it was 24/7 on the field, off the field, and that was an absolute cracker of a series. I feel like this has got that same intensity, but before a ball's bowled. As a player, well, you'll know as well, when you walked out to bowl, you wanted to take wickets. I can't imagine any time you walked onto a field, you went, I'm happy to go none for 100. As a batsman, I was never happy to get a duck. Like, if I played a charity game now, I don't want to get a duck. You always want to make runs. So I don't think that changes in an Ashes series, but because of what comes with it, the stuff off the field, the media build-up, even, when in Australia you've got more media appearances, you've got more sponsor commitments. Certainly as captain, you feel like you want to play the game because the game's like a day off because there's so much stuff off the field to do. So I think that's the significant difference with an Ashes series. But I love that as well. I think, I guess for other sports, it's like a grand final. That's how I always saw an Ashes series.
I mean, would you say, where do you sit on the captain of a team and the influence he has on the players he has? Do you think it's because what I'm trying to say is, but when an England captain goes to Australia and they win the Ashes, which is very rare, let's be straight to it. It's not an easy thing to do. Same as Australia coming to UK now.
Winning away from home is tough. Yeah,
do you believe it's right that people are judged on their captaincy skill, just whether they win an Ashes series or not? Because I played under a good captain, Nasser Hussain, right? I thought he was a good skipper, but he never won the Ashes, so he'll never get put into that group of captains that are the ultimate.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Like, the conversation now about Joe Root, right? Hasn't scored 100 in Australia. I know he would love to, but I see that as the icing on the cake for Joe. Yeah. I don't see, like, if he doesn't, I'm sure he'll look back in time and go, I wish I did. But, mate, his record is his record, and you cannot take that away from him. He's an all-time great player. So I just think, look, I retired after losing an Ashes series in England, and I took, for a number of reasons, not just losing the Ashes, but a big part of it was because I thought our team was good enough to win, but we didn't win. So I took that. I thought it was, my responsibility, or I should take accountability for that, and probably the right time for the team to move on and have another leader. But no, I don't think it should make or break your career, especially these days. There's so much cricket. Teams And it will happen now as well. Like, we'll play this Ashes series, which will be the biggest thing for the Australian fans and probably the England fans. But from a player's perspective these days, after the fifth test, mate, the boys probably go into another series. They probably get on a plane 2 days later and have to play India in India. So their brain transitions so quickly. Yet, you know, in our time, the Ashes was massive build-up, generally one-day cricket before the test series starts. So the energy's there, then everything is about the Ashes. And if you lose, it's like the longest flight home ever. So I think a lot's changed, to be honest, Goughie. And I don't think you should be just judged on Ashes series. I think, like I say, as a player, your career is your career. And I think that's what you should be judged on.
Me old mate, I'd have loved to have captained you, because we're going to talk about captains, right? I played under so many. I mean, from when I first started my county career with Martin Moxon and Phil Carrick, to my England Day career. I had Alan Wells and Hugh Morris, who I really enjoyed, both of them, by the way. And then I went through the England captains. So for me, I had Michael Atherton, I just missed Goughie. So Michael Atherton, Alex Stewart, Nasser Hussain, and Michael Vaughan for a very, very short period. One test match and quite a few one-day internationals, probably about 10 one-day internationals. Who were the captains you played under, and does any of them hold a place in your heart?
I think they all have a place in your heart because they've gone to bat and picked you, if you know what I mean. At various different times, whether it's Nasser, who was sort of first captain, Vaughan, who went through from that, KP, when I was out of the side, brought me back in, Fred, went on record a couple of weeks ago.
Well, just your best mate.
Yeah, no, but he went on record.
You were your drinking partner.
Yeah, but he went on record a couple of weeks ago. You might not have seen it because I know you don't watch a lot of YouTube stuff. But Fred basically, after the wide ball in Brisbane, he basically said, "I couldn't leave you out. There's no way I could drop you. We didn't have much to come in. I knew where you were. You were probably." That was better than what other things we had, and also I knew that when I went out there, I knew everything that you were going to give me. You give me everything you've got, and then Straussy at the end brought me back for that last 2 test matches, Ashes test matches, the swan song of your career. So I think every single one of them means something to me because probably other than Vaughan, they either brought me into the team. Or they really sort of went.
Brought you back.
Yeah, went the whole 9 yards to bring me back. So I think they all mean something to me.
Do you think those captains all saw you as the similar type of performer? Big heart, can bowl very fast. You have obviously got the bounce, and if they needed to win a test match, you were always going to be the one they'd turn to. Similar to in my era, we used to turn to Devon Malcolm, right? Yeah. Oh, bring Dev back for a test match because he's quicker than anyone else, and let's see if he can knock the opposition. Do you think, which one of them captains saw you more than that, or do you think one of those captains saw you as that type?
I think Strauss probably did at the end because he knew that I was on my way over the hill, and I was closer to the bottom of the hill than I was to the top of the hill, if you know what I mean. I think Kev saw me as... I think he wanted to make a statement when Kevin first came in as captain, and it was right. Looking at Kevin's career at that point, the respect he had for the senior players, especially the ones he came into the team in 2005 with, I think he probably knew he could get a tune out of somebody who he could rely on, and I'd gone and done it for sort of months and months for Durham. So I think Kevin's seen it as that. Vaughan didn't see me as anything other than he got me in my sort of peak. My peak.
Yeah. And it was a good 4-ball, wasn't it? Good 4 good fast bowlers.
Absolutely. And I think Nasser and Duncan were building something over the course of a 3-year period where it wasn't just me. It was probably started with just Gothic and Vaughan. Bomb. You name them. Simon, Matthew, Simon Jones, Matthew Hoggard, Andrew Flintoff.
So it's like the old guard. Like I'd come out of the side, I'd retired from Test cricket, and your Thorpes had gone, Your Caddicks were going on the way out, and it was rebuilding then for that 2005 Ashes.
Yeah.
And Vaughan was going to be the captain, and it was right. This is what we need. These are the characters we need, and this is what we need to beat Australia. So, out of all them, if you were to pick one, why would that be the captain that was the perfect captain for you?
I think Michael would. It's obviously Michael. The best two captains I played for were Michael Vaughan and Dale Benkenstein. Dale Benkenstein was.
No, I get that. I get Dale.
Benke was a brilliant leader. I mean,
well, tell me about Dale, because we know about Vaughan. We know what Vaughan was.
The thing about Dale was, whatever the situation, that was the situation. I mean, if you played on a green seamer, there was no feeling sorry for yourself with Benke. Benke would very much have the onus on the player to. It's your career. You actually, you got to work it out.
And he had a tough edge to him.
But he did have a tough edge to him. But he also had a brilliant way of managing A, the individual, B, within the group, the individual, and the team in the group. And also he had a brilliant way of seeing 2 steps ahead, knowing what was coming up, can see what was happening, could see that, right, Harmy, you need to come off now because in 2 wickets' time, I need you to go, right, 6 down, these are going to be all out because they've got X, Y, and Z. There were times where I'd basically said to Dale, no, I'm not coming off. And he's like, no, you are coming off because you can't bowl all day because I am going to ask you in an hour's time to possibly bowl for 3/4 of a session, if not the whole session, because I want you to knock these over. Dale was a brilliant leader in such a way where you didn't realise he was a good leader until he came off the field at the end of the day. And a lot of that was down to his management, having that extra slip. Would never set a field for a bad ball. Never ever set a field for a bad ball.
Oh, I like that.
And that was Benke. He wouldn't, and we had some experienced players around at that time, and he gave responsibilities to senior players. So the onus was on the senior player to perform and do their job
and lead by example.
He led by and also making sure that the younger players were also given a license and a room to manoeuvre. It wasn't just Nasser Hussain type hand and pointing to me.
Which Nasser was, right?
But we needed that.
I need.
Yeah,
look, for me, I played, and I joke about it now, and I'm good friends with all my captains, believe it or not. Atherton, for me, coming to the England side, my upbringing, probably similar to yours, where we're from, and I just didn't get the old Michael Atherton thing. It was almost like it was just on a different wavelength to me, I'm kind of from that football camp where I want people to be, come on, this is what we're going to do. You get out there, you get a clip round the ear kind of thing, and you know what I mean, and you go and do it. With others, I couldn't get over the fact that before we going out to play an Ashes match, he'd be sat with his legs crossed and reading the Times. But that was just his way of switching off. I'm not having to go at him for it, because others got put the captaincy from such a young age, and he was probably got it too young. And he was captain in England side that were in a massive transition. They were getting battered everywhere, and he had to come in and try and steady the ship. And then Alex Stewart came in, who was born to captain, right? He had to come in and do it. He very much led it like a football. He's a massive football fan. So I kind of got on his wavelength a little bit more. I thought he was quite, had a good cricketing brain, Alex Stewart, and I liked playing under him, right? But when Nasser came in, that's when the team needed a real kick up the backside, and Nasser wasn't afraid of anybody.
Mm-hmm. I get that, and now what I'll say with that is the environment before was very, very selfish, where I think the environment that Nasser was turning the group into was getting away from selfishness, even though Nasser was heavily part of the selfish brigade.
Absolutely, he was. Yeah.
But that, and when I say that, because I had feet in both camps, I got picked in 2000 when Nasser left me out at 9. When Dusty and Grav told me I was playing at 9:30, and Nasser at 10:15 told me no, Ed Giddens is going to play because the cloud come over. That was in 2000. I didn't make my debut until 2002. The dressing room different from 2000 to 2002. Yeah. I mean, I left that dressing room in 2000 thinking I don't want to play for England. Really don't. I mean, I really don't. I'm not going to have a go at the guys who were playing. I'll name you the group that was there. It was like Atherton, Nick Knight, Nasser.
Thorpe.
Dopey wasn't in. I don't think Dopey was in that game, but Hickey was in that game. Ramps was
Ramps,
in that game.
yeah,
Stewie.
Butch.
I don't think Butch was in either. I
Wow.
think Butch was having a.
I was
think
injured
Butch was out.
2002 because that's
You played in
mine.
the Test match. It was a Zimbabwe Test match. I'm sure you played in the Test match.
Lords.
You, Caddick,
Lords and Trent Bridge.
Lodge and Trent Bridge.
Yeah, I played
You
in them,
played
yeah.
in that one. Fred was in the squad, but I don't think Fred played. Scoey played in the game. And I came away from them 2 Test matches when I was in the squad, and I was like, I don't want to play for England. I really didn't enjoy it. Come down. I mean, I was of the. I'd been brought up with David Boone, 1997, 98, 99, where the group was, you come down at sort of 6:30, 7 o'clock. You went out for a meal. You had a drink. A couple of beers. You went to bed. You went and played cricket.
I played my whole career like that.
Like that, yeah. And I remember going in that environment at Trent Bridge, and I came down at like 6 o'clock because I thought, right, I'll be eager. Nobody in the bar.
Well, you always like to know.
Nobody around.
6 o'clock somewhere.
But
isn't
nobody around for like 2 hours.
What? And I want there.
And there was nobody
Come on,
knocking around.
I must have been there.
I think you were going through one of your first midlife crises. So I look at that, and I came away from that environment going, I didn't enjoy that, but I think that was a transition into central contracts where there was a lot of, and I don't blame them guys. I look at, you talk about it, and I'm probably digging myself an even bigger hole here when I'm looking at, you look at some like pundits and you look at the way the game's being talked about, and I get sometimes, I don't get frustrated, but when people go, you look at people that are commentating on TV and you go, yeah, they had good careers, but won now. What did they win? And I'll defend them because their environment, I don't think your environment in the early part of your career was of the winning mentality. It was surviving in the team. It was, can I get to the next game? Can I get to the next game?
I agree.
So
because the selectors change the team every game.
Absolutely. And I think when people like have a go and say, these didn't win anything. That era didn't win anything. Didn't win the Ashes for 20 years. Didn't win in the West Indies didn't win in the West Indies from the 60s until 2004. It wasn't a winning environment.
Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
You won in Pakistan and Sri Lanka. You were out of the World Cup at home. That era was out of the World Cup at home before the team song, you got going. So
we got to the quarterfinal in '96, mate.
Yeah, but when I talk about, I see that environment and hear people talking on the television, you go, you were a victim of this. You were a victim of what that system was, and I don't think that system was very good. And that's where I always come back to. Michael Vaughan was the best captain I played for, the most enjoyable captain I played for, probably because he was my first.
The team were
captain,
good as well.
Was Nasser because I think Nasser put his head above the parapet and went, right, I have seen all this.
That was the influence of Duncan Fletcher as well.
Was,
by the
but
way,
it
the
was,
coach,
but
who plays a big part, by the way. I think they're a pair.
Yes, absolutely.
You have to work as a pair. If they don't work as a pair, it doesn't work.
But it's still Nasser's chopper on the line when his career stats are bang, 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 bang.
But his career stats went down as captain.
Yeah, but
he was a good captain.
But sometimes when I talk about being sort of selfish or selfless, I look at Nasser's tenureship as possibly a selfless, because we know it's Nasser.
He turned the corner.
We know Nasser can be selfish, and when he was playing and when he was in the dressing room, and even during the time when he came off. And I'm sounding as I'm bagging him here. I think Nasser Hussain's probably one of the most influential captains of England's modern time. Because
agree totally.
The selflessness, he went right. Vaughan, Trescothick, Flintoff. No, he wasn't Strauss.
He brought Broad in.
No, he didn't. No. Nasser brought Simon in, brought Hoggy in, he brought me in. There's 6. There's somebody else. I'm sure there's somebody else, and I can't for the life of us think who that is. Came into the group. Keezy, Rob Key was another one. And then all of a sudden, that 2004, 2005, that was built because we were a team.
Yeah.
And I think
a very good team.
And I think what Vaughan did when he went into 2005 was when he left Thorpe out, he was doing something similar. He was going, right, I'm going to change the baggage and the narrative of we've lost for 20 years.
But he brought KP in.
And he brought KP in. And everybody goes like it was Thorpe for KP. I don't think it was. It was Thorpe for Bell. I was in that group, and I think it was Thorpe for Bell. Kev was always playing. What he did in them one days and what he did in
I
South
played
Africa,
in
what he did,
2004, 2005.
So I
ridiculous.
think it was for him. But for me, I think that era of the sort of the 90s to early 2000s were a victim of the environment that they were in, non-central contracts, very selfish manner, and they were surviving. They weren't playing as a team. They weren't being able to go as a team. And I think it wasn't until Nasser, and that's nothing against Stewie or others, I just think Nasser, along with Duncan Fletcher, along with central contracts, they went, right, this is the next generation of England cricketers are going to be these 6 or 7.
Okay, I want to break it down now.
For me, that's why I think he's the most influential England captain of, 2000 onwards.
I want to break it down because I played under Nasser a lot, and I still call him Skip to this day, right? Because I needed someone, because of probably the way I was, where I come from compared to a lot of cricketers when I first started to England. It was a lot of private school boys, right? And I was like the kind of new era coming through. And I needed someone to give me a kick up the backside now and again and talk to me like I was probably a naughty boy, right? Because you probably saw it in me. He used to wind me up. One day I wanted to kill him, and literally I was on the verge of killing him. And then the next day I love him, right? And he got the best out of me. But so that worked for me. And obviously I didn't play under Varney enough, but I think I'm clever enough because I've known Varney since he was 17, 16, 17.
Michael turned us into professionals.
Yeah. So Michael, when Michael came in, he led by example. I think what I saw as a kid and saw him growing up, he was fit. He was at the peak of his career, his batting, he was quality, so there were no question mark about his batting whatsoever. I think when he first came in, that first series when Nasser stood down, I think he tried to be too funny to start with, and he's not a funny bloke, Michael. He thinks he is, but he isn't, is he? But he tried to be funny and a bit too relaxed. And then he realised the personalities he's got, and I think he managed those personalities well. But on the field, the biggest thing for me, what Michael brought to England, which they'd not had under any of the others, was being proactive. I think that's one thing he's very good. He's thinking ahead all the time. So from the outside, that's what I saw about Michael. What did you see when you're in the heat of the battle?
Michael had a brilliant way of being able to manage his bowlers, which I think you're only as from a captaincy point of view, you're only as good as your bowling attack. I think you had a bowling attack of you and Caddick, and there was a little bit of a drop off. Michael didn't have a drop-off in the majority of the time. He led England. He
had 4 good bowlers, right?
He had
Same
4
as the
good
West
bowlers,
Indies when they were good.
And then even in the sort of transition of Andrew being injured, me losing sort of my way a little bit, sort of 6-7, Hoggy coming to an end, Simon already injured. He already had 2 in waiting and Broden Anderson. Mm-hmm. So I think Michael he was fortunate that he had, I would say, a bowling attack each time.
Well, he had 3 90-mile-an-hour bowlers.
Yeah, he had bowlers that I think.
And one who swung the new ball round corners.
Yeah, I think
it's not a bad lineup, that.
He had proper bowlers. So I think that helps. And he managed them very, very well. And I think his ability to not be able to catch the ball worked in his favour as well. I do that obviously in the Q&As and the stand-up stuff. But on a serious note, no bowler would have him anywhere near a slip or a gully.
Oh, never.
So
I'd have a fine leg if I had a choice.
I know. So he's always at mid on and mid off. So because of that, he was always talking to his bowlers. So he had this brilliant way of being able to take a bowler in and out of a moment if he was going through a bad time. Keep him in the moment if he's going through a good time. Always be able to stay one step ahead. And he was a brilliant psychologist in a way of making sure that he read the game very well. So because of that, he was always, I think, in control of where the game situation was. He was a punter. He gambled a lot in a way, not like off the field, and he gambled a lot on the field in such a way where, he would make, he
was looking for the wickets.
Difficult calls, but he also had one of these once in a generation cricketers. Like we've got Ben Stokes now. They had Ian Botham back then. Michael Vaughan, for the majority of his career, had Andrew Flintoff. And that, for me, is massive. If you've got an all-rounder who can bat 6 and then obviously bowl at sort of 85 to sort of 92 mile an hour, then all of a sudden you've got somebody that can you've got 90 overs in a day and not have to worry about it. And I think because of that, I think Michael got the best out of us five. You know, I chuck Gilo in there as well. Got the best out of us five for the, I'd say, 2.5 years, which I think was probably, the right. I think the right time for England's trajectory to go that way after Nasser, on the way to Strauss, and then beyond.
I'm just going to run these through you quickly. So on some of the other captains, what we've seen since we've retired, right? We've seen Stokes, for me. Bold, he's fearless, he inspires. These are some of the things I wrote down. He has that attacking mindset. He has total belief in his mindset, and he ain't going to change. Stubborn, right? And he takes responsibility. If he's wrong, and he'll land on his sword. That's what I see about Stokes. What do you think about Stokes?
I couldn't disagree. I think that's pretty spot on. I think the beauty about Stokes is he's asking. It's amazing when you ask your teammates to do something that you're prepared to do yourself and go through that hard yard. So, and I think that's a big thing for him. He's inspirational, and I think as well as that, I think he's got a brilliant cricket brain, and he understands where the subject is, i.e. the bowler is, in the mindset of where he is letting go of the ball, and he understands where the game situation is, i.e. where the batter's trying to. So if he needs to sit in, he tells the world he doesn't want to sit in, but all of a sudden he keeps his fielders in position and catching, but he does have people on the boundary, especially to the spin bowler. There's people on the boundary. Shoaib Bashir got 8 or 9 wickets this year, and 7 of them were on the boundary caught. But he still had men round the bat. So
would you say Stokes has now made himself the best captain of the last 30 years?
I think whenever this podcast go out, I think the next month's going to determine whether it is. I think
he's been pretty inspiring, though, hasn't he?
He has. I'm desperate for England to win for multiple reasons, but one of the biggest ones is that, right, we've criticised. We've all had a little dig. We've all had a little go. We've all tried to play the perfect game. But for me, in the last 3.5 years, this is the best. I think this is the best I've ever felt watching or being involved in an England cricket team. From the minute I can remember watching cricket on TV, growing up, to now having played 60 or 100 times in all formats. I've never been more excited about watching a cricket team than what I've watched under Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum. That said, if they lose the Ashes, then you will have a lot of people having a go and say it was all wishy-washy and it was all for nothing. And
then he'll fall on it. And that's what Ben Stokes is, though. He'll just fall on it, won't he? And say, all right, somebody else take over now.
But I think what I would take away from that is I would much rather this team play this way, and I'd much rather my England cricket team have this brand, and I'd much rather have the way the next generation grow up, think about the game of cricket the way Ben and Brendan have got it. Time will tell if they win or they lose. But for me, I think this is the most exciting time I've ever known English cricket. And even going through the 2005 period when we were in it, the way these lot play as a team and collectively, and the way they've changed the narrative of Test match cricket. When Test match cricket was dying, that's why I think Ben Stokes should go down as one of England's very best ever captains.
And I agree, but I think, just quickly before I go on to Cummins and from Australia, I think a lot of the credit for that has got to go to Owen Morgan. And the reason I say that is that Ben Stokes played a lot of white ball cricket under Owen Morgan, and I think what he brought to England, which we'd not had in that format, whether it be under Strauss, under Cook, under Vaughan, all these guys who captained Root, they never had what Owen Morgan had, which was innovation, right? He built a culture in that team, which is very similar to now that England have got. Yes, they call it Bazball. Owen Morgan didn't have a word for it, but they played with they were brave, and Owen lived and died by his brand of cricket. He was a good talker in interviews, and he was always seemed calm. I think I only lost Owen Morgan lose his wheels, lose his head once. And that was when he should have gone to Ben Stokes when they were bowling, to remember the name, Brathwaite, and he didn't go to him once, and he kept getting same delivery every ball. All he had to do to Brathwaite, he could only hit there, was ball wide.
And that's
Right.
that's where Vaughan would have been a little bit from a difference. You
But he's going to get some credit, Owen Morgan,
Oh,
for
massively.
the way England are playing
massively. Me, John, and Jared talked about who's England's best ever captain. If we're talking about Test matches, then that's fine. But if we're talking about all formats of cricket, Morgan's got to be one of the very best. And I look at Morgan's time. Morgan, you look at like Nasser, like what we talked about Nasser a little bit earlier. The thing you have to hit sometimes is rock bottom before you change, and you go that way. And I think what Owen Morgan realised was, in 2015, we can't go on playing this way. We can't go on by our Test cricketers being our best one-day players, because we're not. They're not. So we have to change mentality. We have to change approach. But we also have to change, more importantly, personnel. Who would have thought to leave Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, Alistair Cook, Ian Bell out of a team, an England team in 2015? That takes some guts. That takes some balls. And that, for me, is what Stokes has done with this team. You know, a little bit punt with Shoaib Bashir, but the way and the manner, and Zach Crawley going out the top, not looking for hundreds. These little sort of buzzwords. We're not looking for hundreds. We're looking to put pressure on the opposition right at the very start. This is a game plan and mentality and a team. And that, for me, is what Morgan did with his group. He give them self-belief. Jason Roy coming in, Bairstow to the top. All these little things of this is a game plan, rather than, well, these are our best players, and we'll shove them out, and hopefully we'll get 280 and we'll try and defend it.
Well, there we go. That's captaincy. In fact, I'm not even going to bother going on to the Cummins and Smith debate, because I think we've seen Cummins has got a great team behind him. I think
he's got a bowling attack.
He's got a bowling attack. Smith now, they're already bagging Cummins by saying Smith's now coming into the side. He's a better captain than Cummins. So it's going to be interesting how this Ashes
Cummins
goes.
has had just quickly to finish. Cummins has had a bowling attack for a number of years. That's why he's been successful and strong. There's nothing wrong with that. They've built that, and as a group, they've stuck together and they've worked hard to be both on and off the field very, very strong in the bowling attack. England now, over the course of the next month, have got to find a way of somehow getting 5 Test matches. And if England can find a bowling attack for 5 Test matches, they'll win. If England can't find a bowling attack for 5 Test matches, they'll lose. I think it's as simple as that.
So there you go. Anybody listening or watching will tell you, from me and Steve Harmison, but you're only a good captain if you've got 4 good fast bowlers. There we go.